Hello and welcome back to the Winning Agenda. My name is Jesse Muleman Marshall, and what we've got today is the Avatar of Earth deck tech. This is one of my favorite decks. It is a powerful air-earth mid-range deck. It's another one like the Battle Mage, which you can get up in your opponent's face, and it's got some of the biggest, beefiest minions in the game, as well as some of the most resilient and consistent game plan. So let's dive straight in. So we've got the Avatar, which is the Avatar of Earth. It is a 1 power, 20 health, like most others in the starting alpha set. However, it's got this ability, you have +1 power for each nearby Earth site, which allows us to really get into our opponent's face and deal a lot more damage if it can easily be 4, 5, or 6 power. So a lot of this deck is built around supporting the Avatar with other minions that are also 4, 5, and 6 power, but then having a range of spells that allow us to utilize things that have large power and deal significant damage to our opponent. Things like Grapple Shot, things like Blink that allow us to get into combat, and things like Atlas Wanderers and Earthquake that let us rearrange the board to hopefully give our Avatar the maximum chance of attacking at high power. So what I've got laid out here is the spells from the deck. We've got all of the minions on the left-hand side here in mana cost order. So we've got the 2s, 3s, 4s, and then the 5s. Our curve top's out at 5, and then we've got the non-minion spells over here. So we've got a few removal spells or direct damage spells in the case of Lightning Bolt, which also fits into this category, which is the Common Sense Toolkit. So we've got Common Sense, which I'll take a closer look at in a minute for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and then we've got all the cards underneath it that you can fetch with it as a tutor. Then we've got our little mana package over here, a little mana acceleration, 2 cores and a Philosopher's Stone, and then a cheeky little Gigantism hiding off in the corner there, which is a bit of a finisher. As I'll come to towards the end as well, we've also got a few little flexible slots which you can slot in. Things like Pudge Butcher, Squirming Mass, Gigantism that I mentioned a moment ago, Crusade over here. These are sort of some of the flex slots that I've put at the front, and these are the cards that you might consider subbing in for those, depending on the metagame or your personal preference and playstyle. Whirling Blade's a very powerful finisher, and Divine Healing just allows you to get a bit more aggressive with your Avatar of Earth without worrying about your life total quite as much. So let's dive into a few of the individual cards. So to start us off, at the 2 mana slot on the curve, we've got these 3 gorgeous foil Frontier Settlers. It's taken me a while to compile the 3 of these in foil. But what they do is they're a 2-cost 1 power minion. It says tap, reveal the topmost side of your Atlas, play it adjacent to Frontier Settlers if able, and they move there. They lose this ability. They've got 2 Earth Threshold, which means you need 2 Earth Sites, or an Earth Site and an Onyx Core, for example, in play. You can't play this off an Earth Site and a Tower, or for a Tower on turn 1. But if you play it down on turn 2, what it allows you to do is tap it, get a site into play on turn 3, and then tap your Avatar to also play a site. So you're effectively accelerating to 4 mana on turn 3, or of course 5 mana on turn 4, so on and so forth, 6 mana on turn 5. It gets you 1 mana ahead of where you otherwise would have been, but also crucially, placing a site is even better in some ways than getting a mana from something like a core. It's harder to remove, cores are vulnerable to artifact removal, but it also gives you some territorial advantage. So Frontier Settlers, very nice in at the 2-drop slot there, giving us some acceleration and some board positioning as well. Crusade is the other 2-cost spell. It's an aura, so it goes at the intersection of 4 sites, and it says you may summon Earth minions to affected sites. All of the minions in our deck are Earth minions. I'm just double checking that that's right. Yep. And allied Earth minions occupying affected sites have +1 power. So this can be a really crucial early play, both at pumping up your foot soldiers, which you get off your villages, which are your basic sites, as well as letting you summon some of your bigger minions right into the heart of your opponent's territory. Then we've got our 3-drops. So we'll just grab one of each of them to give you a little taste. So we've got the Shield Maidens, 3 cost for 2 power, not the greatest in terms of efficiency, but nearby allies take 1 less damage. So that lets you trade up with all of your other minions or rather not trade when you would otherwise trade. So you can attack with your 3 or 4 power minions into opposing 3 or 4 power minions, and your minion will survive and theirs won't. So that ability for your nearby allies to take 1 less damage is really crucial in Sorcery, and it's a lot more powerful than it is in a lot of other games. But it also allows you to avoid Poison Nova, crucially. Poison Nova is a spell, a magic spell, that deals 1 damage, but it's lethal damage to all minions nearby an enemy spellcaster. So if they cast that and you have a Shield Maidens, your Shield Maidens will actually block that 1 damage and mean that your minions don't die to that Poison Nova. So that's a really crucial way that Shield Maidens can help to keep you alive against one of the most common sweepers that gets played in Death Speaker decks. Crown Prince is just a really resilient 3-drop. So it's a 3-cost, 3-power minion. If you control another mortal, which we will often do because our Foot Soldier tokens are mortals, you can return Crown Prince to its owner's hand when it dies, which means you can attack, you can control, when this happens a lot of the time, you can attack into an opposing 3-power minion, trade, but your Crown Prince will actually come back to your hand, which is delivering you some card advantage over the course of the game. Then we've got Autumn Unicorn. It might just look like a vanilla creature, but it is a 3-cost, 4-power minion, and anything that has higher power than it does cost in Sorcery is very, very strong on curve. And this just lets you get an attacking creature that's going to threaten to finish the game early on the board sooner than you otherwise might. So 3-cost for 4 power, and some beautiful Severin Pinot artwork as well to go with the power. Then we've got the Squirming Mass, which is a rather more grim-looking Brian Smith artwork. 3-cost for 0 power. Whenever a nearby minion dies, Squirming Mass permanently gains its power. So obviously 3-cost for 0 power, terrible in terms of efficiency. But on the turn that you play this, because Sorcery doesn't have any instant speed spells at the moment, other or offensive ones at that, it's only got Dodge Roll, which is not going to interact with Squirming Mass. What this can allow you to do is you play your Squirming Mass when you've already got a creature that's about to get into combat, either to kill one of your opponent's minions or even to trade, because this is going to permanently gain the power of every nearby minion that dies. So if you have a 3-power minion, for instance, your Crown Prince, sitting next to this Squirming Mass, so you have a Crown Prince on a square, you've got the Squirming Mass in your hand, you play the Squirming Mass on the same square, then you attack with the Crown Prince into your opponent's nearby or rather adjacent minion, you trade 3 for 3, the Squirming Mass is actually going to gain the 3 power from the Crown Prince that died, and the 3 power from the opposing 3-power minion that died. So you've spent 3 mana and you've got a 6-power minion. And hopefully your Crown Prince will also return back to your hand if you control another mortal. So the Squirming Mass can quickly get out of hand. Gaining the entire power of nearby things that die is very strong. And it's actually something that you can control a little bit more in Sorcery, because you can actually attack your opponent's minions with your own. So to turn your Squirming Mass on. Obviously, it is a little bit less reliable than something like an Autumn Unicorn. So it's got a lower floor, if you like. It can actually you can pass the turn and it can still be 0 power if you haven't got anything else in play. But its ceiling is much, much higher. Then in the 4-drop slot, I will just grab one of each again. We've got the Dalcian Phalanx, the Royal Bodyguard, and the Pudge Butcher. So Pudge Butcher, a fan favourite. I haven't been showing the backs of all of the foils because we have quite a few in this deck now, but I can't help but show the back of the Pudge Butcher, which has that rather grim looking little toy at the bottom of the artwork. Some very grim, very iconic Brian Smith artwork. The Pudge Butcher, drawing on some tropes from other video games and things of Pudge, and delivering a rather grim throwback. But in terms of gameplay mechanics, it's a 4-cost, 5-power minion. It's immobile, which means it can't move, it can't attack, it can't defend on its site, but it can tap to shoot a projectile. If it hits a unit, drag that unit to this location, Pudge may fight it. So this is just a great way, if you can clear out the middle of the board, you can actually pull their avatar into your territory, which makes your Avatar of Earth even stronger, because it allows you to then beat up on them when your Avatar of Earth is more likely to be surrounded by Earth sites. You've then got, it's also just 4 for 5, which is great. So Pudge gets to, although it isn't as mobile, or rather it's immobile, the 4-cost for 5 power is, very, very good if you can land your hooks. Royal Bodyguard is a 4-cost, 4-power minion, so decent rate. You know, it's worse than an Autumn Unicorn, if you like. It's still got 2 threshold like the Unicorn, but it costs 1 more. But the advantage of it is that if a nearby avatar of royalty, king, queen, prince, or princess, would take damage, Royal Bodyguard may take that damage instead, which can save you when you're at death's door. It can mean they have to go through the bodyguard first before they can get to you and finish you off, which is pretty powerful. And it can also mean that your Crown Prince or your Queen of Midland, which we also have in the deck, can survive a little bit longer if Royal Bodyguard is nearby. But its main use is saving you at death's door. Then we've got Dalcian Phalanx, which is another, just like the Autumn Unicorn and the Pudge Butcher, that has power greater than its cost. So it's 5 power for only 4 mana, but it can only move themselves forwards. That's okay, because generally you're wanting them to move forward and attack as 5 power minions. There are some circumstances where you want to move them sideways or backwards and you can't, but in the main, just that raw power is something that works very well for the Phalanx. Next up in the 5-drop slot, we've got the Atlas Wanderers, the Amazon Warriors, and the Queen of Midland. So the Atlas Wanderers says 5 cost, 5 power. It does have 3 Earth threshold, which is pretty unusual in Alpha. There aren't many things that have 3 threshold. It says Genesis, this site and an adjacent site change places, carrying along everything of normal size. And that's really powerful if you place it on your middle site, so the site just in front of your avatar. You change places with their middle site. You've then got one of their sites right next to your starting position that you can start beating up on with your Avatar of Earth. So Atlas Wanderers is a great way to animate your avatar, if you like, as well as getting a really nice big 5 power minion onto the board. Amazon Warriors, actually before I get to that, we'll show you the back of the Atlas Wanderers because I think this is some more pretty sweet Brian Smith artwork. Nice little full art there on the Atlas Wanderers. Very, very cool artwork. I like some of the more, how should I put it, abstract artworks in the set, as well as those that are more realistic in style. Yes, Brian Smith, definitely a very talented abstract artist. So Amazon Warriors, speaking of realism, so you've got the 5 cost, 5 power vanilla. And when I'm talking about the common sense toolkit that I'll come to in a minute, it is important that these are ordinary minions, so they're ordinary mortals. They can actually be fetched by common sense, which is the main reason that they're in the deck. Obviously 5 cost, 5 power is good enough, but it's nothing special in terms of having no ability, but it's that ability to be fetched by common sense that is the reason we've got these enormous warriors in our deck. Look how large they are compared to their attendants. Certainly deserving of their 5 power. Then we've got the Queen of Midland, who's our other 5-drop. And the Queen of Midland is a nice little card advantage engine. It is expensive, it costs 5. It is vulnerable, so the Royal Bodyguard being able to protect it a little bit is nice. It's a 5 cost 1 power minion that says after an opponent draws a card, if they have more cards than you may draw a card. This is a deck that's often going to be hellbent in Magic parlance, so it's often going to be playing out all the cards that it draws. So having a Queen of Midland is usually going to mean that you're drawing cards on your opponent's turn, even if it's the first one they draw straight after you play it and pass the turn. You're usually going to at least get the card back, and if it does stay in play, it can lead to some pretty significant card advantage. Or if you're playing against a deck that's trying to draw cards on its own turn, this can be a real thorn in their side. Then we move into the removal spells. So we've got the Bury and Earthquake. So Bury is an ordinary magic of Terranian Internment. Burrow target minion or artifact if able. It is the sort of bog standard removal spell for 3 mana, just gets rid of 1 target thing. And then Earthquake is sort of the upgraded version. It costs 5 and it says rearrange sites within a 2x2 region, carrying along everything of normal size, which means things that don't span multiple sites. Then burrow all minions and artifacts on those sites. So that basically lets you kill anything that doesn't have burrowing and isn't on a water site, because you can't burrow things on a water site. So you get to kill everything that doesn't have burrowing or is not on a water site, and you get to get rid of their artifacts if they're carrying them. You also, crucially, for the same reason as Atlas Wanderers is powerful in this deck, get to rearrange the sites, which means that if you target some of the sites towards the middle of the board, you're very likely to be able to get your avatar into contact with your opponent's sites, and potentially even with your opponent's avatar if you're trying to finish off the game. So Earthquake, a very powerful one as well, both as removal and repositioning on the board. Next up, we've got the Common Sense Toolkit. So we'll get 1 copy of each of the Common Sense targets to show you just what versatility the Common Sense Toolkit brings to this deck. So this is obviously just one way that you can approach the deck. You could not play Common Sense, or you could not play Air, or you could not play all of these specific exact Common Sense targets, but I like having the flexibility. You could also play more Common Senses. I've only got 2 in the list at the moment, but if you wanted to have more versatility, you could certainly play more of them in the deck. So what does Common Sense do? It's a 2-cost ordinary spell. It says search your spellbook for an ordinary card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your spellbook. So it's a tutor for ordinary cards. Lets you search for any ordinary in your deck, put it straight in your hand, which is pretty good for 2 mana. Sorcery doesn't have many tutors. Ordinary cards are, of course, you're able to play 4 of them, so they're theoretically the most common cards in your deck, and it shouldn't be that powerful to go and find them. But what, of course, this allows you to do is play fewer copies of ordinaries and have more options available and more consistency in when you find them. So Common Sense lets us find a range of things from the Amazon Warriors that we mentioned, just a large minion if that's what we need, to Overpower, which is a 1-cost spell that gives an ally +2 power this turn, so it can let you trade up or not trade with your minion, or can allow you to get the extra 2 damage in that you need to finish the game or deliver yourself some other significant advantage. We've got Blink, which lets you reposition either your avatar or an allied minion. So it's any ally, including your avatar, teleports to a location nearby, draw a card. Replaces itself, very efficient. Grapple Shot, probably the most powerful spell in the game. 3 cost, an ally shoots a projectile, which ally can include your avatar. If it hits a unit, the ally is dragged to that location and may strike the hit unit, which is a free attack, doesn't tap you. Sorry, free strike. Lets you deal your power in damage to the hit unit, and then you can tap to attack them as well if you're untapped. So Grapple Shot can let your Avatar of Earth effectively attack twice in one turn, strike twice in one turn. For only 3 mana, that's a real bargain, given how strong the Avatar itself is, and a lot of your minions are. Dispel, destroy all auras and artifacts at target location up to 2 steps away. You can get rid of pesky summoning spheres, Atlantean fates, all sorts of things that might be ruining your day. Or if you're getting up in your opponent's face, you can get rid of their acceleration or their defensive auras and artifacts as well. Border Militia lets us summon a range of foot soldiers, which, if we've got something like Shield Maidens or Crusade in play, can give us resilient or powerful attackers. It can also just let us swarm and overwhelm our opponent if that's what we need to do in a particular game situation, or get a bunch of blockers. And Lightning Bolt is just an efficient way to finish the game. If your opponent's running away and they're on a side on their own, you draw into a Common Sense, you can go fetch a Lightning Bolt, finish the game that way. So it's a great little one-off to have in the deck as well. Then we move into the last little section of the spellbook. So we've got the Amethyst Core, Philosopher's Stone, Onyx Core, and the Gigantism. So the Gigantism, as I mentioned, 4 cost, give an ally +6 power this turn, can mean that your avatar just gets in for heaps of damage, or any one of your minions. Means your foot soldier can get in for 7 out of nowhere. It just gives you a lot of flexibility for winning a race or turning a race in your favor for only 4 mana. Could be subbed, as I said, for something like Whirling Blades if what you're finding in your metagame is that you actually need more ways to use your avatar to get strikes in for free without being struck back. Whirling Blades is something that allows you to do that, as well as to clear out large numbers of minions. Amethyst Core, got this beautiful foil of the Amethyst Core, one of my favourite artworks in the game, so I'm pretty stoked to have that particular foil. I'll show you the back of that one as well. Got a little inner sleeve on this one. Of course, that gorgeous artwork from Melissa Benson. But I do have to say that the foil side of this, the way that they've done the cores in particular, is truly something to behold. The Amethyst Core is just gorgeous. So one of my favourite cards, one of my favourite foils, and one of my favourite cards that I own at the moment. Then we've got the Philosopher's Stone and the Onyx Stone, 2 other ways to accelerate us in the first few turns of the game, which is something we very much enjoy. So then we've got the Atlas for the deck, and this is one of the simpler atlases out of all the atlases that I've shown in my deck showcases. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 villages. They all do the same thing. It's just Genesis, pay 1 mana, and you can summon a Foot Soldier token, which is a 1 power mortal token. So they, aside from being many of them, gorgeous foils. I think I'm 3 short of the foils that I need for this particular deck to fill out the basics. Gorgeous art on the background, on the back of the card from Andrea Modesti on each of them. But what they do is give us access to 1-drops, because we don't actually play any other 1-drops in the deck other than our mana generating artifacts. But crucially, they allow us to get some extra mortals and some extra minions on the board early, either for aggression or for defense. We've then got in the middle here our non-basic Earth utility sites, if you like. So we'll take a look at those in a little more closely. So first up is Pillar of Xeros. It says, Genesis, banish all dead minions and you heal 1 life for each. So not only does this beautiful foil let us hose Death Speaker decks a little bit by stopping some of their recursion, it also lets us gain some life back in the middle of the game. Since we don't play any recursion, we don't really care about all of our minions from our cemetery being banished, but being able to banish all of our opponent's minions from their cemetery may both hurt them and give us a little bit of life back, if our Avatar of Earth happens to have been getting into combat a little bit already, which we hope it has. We've then got 2 Holy Grounds, which also give us a bit of healing. So it says, Genesis, each nearby avatar heals 3 life. That can just let you deal with some more aggressive decks and make sure that you're not getting too close to Death's Door when you want to get in there with your avatar and get up in their face. Lastly, on the Earth utility site side of things, we've got Rift Valley, which in a beautiful foil version here, gorgeous, gorgeous artwork from Dan Seagrave, says you may pull apart a partial row or column to make a void in which to play this. And like Atlas Wanderers and Earthquake, this lets you, if you're on the draw and your opponent has played on their starting site and then the side in front, you can then insert this Rift Valley in the middle of that and pull their second site onto your side of the board, on your middle site, which then means it's right next to your Avatar of Earth and you can start getting in there sooner. Obviously, it exposes you as well by placing the Rift Valley right next to their starting position, but the hope is that given your Avatar of Earth has a very high power ceiling, that you can outpace them with your attacks on their site. So that's Rift Valley and the Earth utility sites. Then we've got the Earth Air Dual Site Windmill, which lets us support our Air Splash. We've got 3 copies of that, and then we've got 1 copy of each of the air basic sites, the towers, which if it's the first one that we control, or the only one we control, which it will be because we're only playing 1 of each, then you get an extra mana as a Genesis ability on the turn you play it. So it's that little bit of acceleration. So on top of those, as I said, we've got the 9 villages. I'll just give you a close-up look at that as well. So Rustic Village. Take a little look at the beautiful foil. And with 9 of those, almost every second site you draw is going to be a village, so we'll have plenty of opportunities to summon lots of foot soldiers. So I hope you enjoyed the Avatar of Earth deck tech. It's been really great to take you through 4 of my favourite decks that I've managed to put together in person: the Battle Mage, the Death Speaker, the Water Sorcerer, and the Avatar of Earth. I do recommend you check out the other deck techs if you haven't already. Also, hope you enjoyed the Gaia Hippogriffs artist proof unboxing that I posted a couple of days ago. Those of you who haven't seen that, please do check it out. And if you've got any ideas for upcoming sorcery videos, please let me know. We'll have more gameplay and other videos coming soon. And as always, thanks to our members for your ongoing support of the channel. It really means a lot. And thanks to everyone who's liked and subscribed and otherwise just enjoyed our videos. Have a great day. Cheers.